Hello and welcome to Presenting, a podcast where we chat about various topics related to role-playing games, typically Paizo products such as Pathfinder and Starfinder, but also others. I'm John Godek, and with me today again is Carlos Cabrera. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, it's super having you again after what you've done for me, So Carlos is a freelance role-playing game writer and designer. His work has been published by Paizo, Legendary Games, and Wright Publishing. He is the founder of Something Clever Games and also works as a voice actor. Also, it was just announced at Gen Con just last weekend that he will be working with Evil Genius Games on something he'll get a chance to chat about here. Now, Carlos, we talked 2 years ago, so it would be 2 years ago in November. And then last year, I was fortunate to get you as a guest speaker when I had somebody else drop out, and you came in and talked about your company and how you got started for my students in my entrepreneurship class. So that was great.
Yeah, that's
now,
fun.
Can you give us an update on some of the things that you've done since then?
Yes. So the project that I was sort of reaching out to people to hopefully announce back in 2020 is still in progress. But I am happy to report that after Gen Con, I met the board game publisher in person, and we had a delightful chat this past Thursday to actually finalize the contracts and hopefully get that in motion. So my first board game project has been sold. I'm still looking to find out when the development schedule will be like to announce what that property is, but it'll be a board game for a global video game IP translated to the tabletop. So I'm super excited for that. And then after the entrepreneurship class that I had as well, man, that was just pretty fun to do. That was the first time I actually talked to students about that kind of thing. I've been to Antioch University for like almost more of like a life social kind of thing, but nothing really for the business yet. So that was super fun. So there's a new announcement after Gen Con that is happening where now I'm working with Evil Genius Games on an update to the D20 modern setting.
Yeah, I saw that announcement at Gen Con, and I was surprised to see the whole breadth of it. Now, it looks like Evil Genius Games has got this huge number of licenses for the Crow and different things, and they're doing using their Everyday Heroes system in order to kind of flesh these out. And you were tasked with working on what part of that?
So they actually reached out to me after finding my previous work. So kind of fun. That was the first time that's ever happened to me.
Yeah.
And they asked me basically what my 3 favorite properties that they were working on that I wanted to do. And top of that list was Total Recall. And they didn't have a writer for that yet. So they basically signed me up immediately for that one.
Nice. And is this going to be players going through like it was in the movie Total Recall, playing those roles and that situation, or is it something different?
This is going to be a actual sequel to the original film with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the movie studio will actually be approving everything I write for this adventure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's cool. Now, not the Colin Farrell version, the
Correct.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yes.
What's the difference? Is it different studios that did those? I don't know.
I believe it was. I was looking up how the movie rights sort of worked out, and I think it was Columbia Pictures that did the original film, and then they branched off into the remake in 2012 and sort of went in a different direction with that. But I think it was Studio Canal that was announced at Gen Con that has the current license for Total Recall.
Right.
And they wanted, Evil Genius pitched their idea, and I've always been a big fan of the film. And just like, rewatching the film just recently, looking at the special effects and how they hold up, I'm like, this is still a really good movie. Plus, it's always fun watching Arnold to do his little catchphrases and all that. But yeah, they allowed me to basically write the next chapter of what the Arnold Schwarzenegger story would be, with the players participating in basically what's going to happen right after the events of the original film.
Wow. And so you actually get to play as I don't remember what is his name in the movie.
His name was Quaid,
Okay.
Douglas Quaid, I believe it was. And after there, there's now air on Mars, and the
Yeah.
CEO of Cohagen is dead. They basically just stopped the movie right at that point.
Right.
Um, so I basically will be dealing with the ramifications of all that,
Hmm.
and um, the design team will, of course, be doing the additional rule content to support the adventure. So
Right.
there'll be rules for mutant powers. There'll be rules for memory implantation using the Recall Company's devices.
Hmm.
And I was told by Dave Scott, who's the CEO, that I probably got off a lot easier than a lot of people because I can just basically write what happens next, and the movie
Yeah.
studio will basically put their stamp of approval on it.
Wow.
For things like their other properties that they're doing, like Kong, for example, like
Yeah.
he had to sign all these NDAs to get access to basically their MonsterVerse Bible. So
Mm.
they have like
Hmm.
a very discrete path of how they want the next stories in that universe to unfold. So
Hmm.
it's more of like matching their vision, where this is
Wow.
basically, I almost have, I wouldn't say free reign, but I get to be as creative as I like and see if it's basically what the studio enjoys.
Right. And so they're done. They didn't plan on a sequel, or they're hoping that your writing is so good that they can base the screenplay on
I
it. I'm
mean,
not sure
fingers
which.
crossed they want to do something with it after this, but that would be amazing.
Nice. Nice. Now, is it going to be set in that world, or will you be actually playing the characters as they go on, like the same characters in the movie?
You can play the original characters that you want using the system for your adventure.
Okay.
And I do know that Evil Genius does not have the likeness for Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, right, right. You don't need that,
Yeah, but
but you could stat them out, and
yes, yes, they'll
in the
still
same
have
with
the stats
yeah.
in case you want to use them.
Okay.
But you'll be playing new characters dealing with the aftermath of having air on Mars and what that means for the corporation that was basically in charge of everything.
Nice, nice. Yeah. Now, have you played anything with Everyday Heroes before and used the D20 modern system before?
I've been actually a pretty big fan of the D20 modern system.
Hmm.
I wanted to actually use the D20 modern system in some kind of updated form for my personal campaign setting that is sort of attached to the mobile project we probably discussed the last time.
Right. Yes.
So when they approached me about this job, I was like, I already love the system, so I'm sold there.
Hmm.
They're updating it for D&D 5th edition, and I basically got to take on a project where they're doing all of the heavy lifting of revising a system I've already wanted to use. I just
Hmm.
get to add to that content and then add to the lore for the specific property. So sold. It was a pretty easy decision.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, are is there any like additional, um, any books or anything that followed up on the additional on the initial kind of writings, or do you know of?
The original film was based upon a short story by Philip K. Dick,
Mhm.
and then they had the original film. Since then, there's been I think it was a British TV series,
Hmm.
and then of course the remake with Colin Farrell. But I'm specifically only using reference material from the original film and the short story.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Yeah. Now, I was curious if there's, like if you look at the Star Wars universe, there's like so much additional
yeah,
writing that happened, from when the first movies came out and stuff. And I didn't know if there was something like smaller scale,
yeah,
right, for Total Recall, given that it was, at the time it was pretty popular, and I think it has become kind of a cult hit,
yeah, yeah,
which kind of spurred the remake being done, which the remake wasn't near as good. It wasn't like as campy,
yeah.
as, as kind of the original in that regard. And it didn't have Arnold,
I
obviously.
remember leading into the history of that. And I think what Arnold was proposed by the writers to actually make a sequel to the original film,
Mm, hmm.
thought it was a little bit overly complicated. And then years later, they went in the separate direction that Colin Farrell's movie did.
Right,
But this basically gets to be whatever happens to his character right after that, plus what the players are
right.
involved in. So it's
Yeah.
kind of fun going back to the original source material.
Yeah. Now, can you talk a little bit about Everyday Heroes and the D20 modern system? I had interviewed Jeff Grubb, who was
Mhm.
like one of the folks that kind of helped write the
Yeah.
D20, the original D20 modern system. I've actually never played it at all, so I don't have a lot of familiarity with it.
So the D20 modern system, of course, being based on 3.5, it used a class and sort of advanced class system that was basically separated by 10 levels apiece.
Hmm,
So you had your base classes were only 10 levels, and then your, extraordinary ability classes or your prestige classes were sort of what happened in the late game
right,
as something that was an added on section of the level growth back then. And I do know that the Evil Genius crew, they're only focusing on the first 10 levels because with Everyday Heroes basically being what it's called, they wanted to have a low to mid level modern day campaign setting using
right.
this rule set. And then I believe next year they're planning to go further with some more books to bring that back up to 20.
Oh, neat. So it'll be Everyday Superheroes then,
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah. Or,
something like that.
urban
Yeah.
fantasy or stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. No, that's kind of neat. I'd like the 3.5 system.
yeah.
I'm playing some 5e now. It's way different,
Hmm.
way different, obviously. Um, yeah, no, that's kind of a neat way for them to go out doing it. Now, it looks like Evil Genius Games has a lot of licenses, and if they had to go through all these NDAs and all these things to put
Hmm.
it together, that's seems like it would be complicated and expensive. Do you know anything about the company and what's kind of strategically, or how they've been able to go about doing this?
Yeah, and
I'm curious.
they're also a pretty new company to the market too.
Hmm.
During Gen Con, and this was a fun little story that the CEO Dave Scott and I shared, was that we realized that we both work in the same Amazon building in downtown Seattle. Like he actually came in, saw my Pathfinder lanyard because I worked the first floor desk,
Yeah,
and chatted me about it a few times. He's like, "Oh yeah, I should probably talk to you more about that." Never thought anything of it, and then about a year later, reaches out to me for a job.
yeah.
So he actually was speaking to Jeff Grubb about the original D20 modern game and some of the
Hmm.
things that Jeff would fix if he ever revisited it after,
Hmm.
just networking and having some drinks like you do. And then they were just like, well, why don't we just do it? Why don't we just update the system? And then the Kickstarter was born.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Well, I'm still curious about these licensees,
Yeah.
and what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to ask you
Okay.
if you can connect me with this guy
Sure.
so that I can ask these questions of him. I could probably go to Owen and ask as well.
Hmm.
I've interviewed him before, but I haven't interviewed this guy, and I'm really kind of curious. And if you don't feel comfortable doing that, I can reach out to Jeff as well, and I'm sure
Oh, yeah.
Jeff would
I
be
could
happy
totally
to
get you
okay,
connected
all right,
with Dave. No problem at all.
yeah, yeah. Are you trying to get him to make this a full time gig for you so you can give up your day job then?
Well, we did actually have a conversation, but
Yeah,
we'll see what happens after Total Recall happens.
yeah,
They already have a release schedule up on the Kickstarter page and their
yeah. I saw
personal
that.
website.
Yeah.
So May of next year, the Total Recall PDF will be available, and then the print book shortly after that.
Hmm.
So in my future, I see it very likely that I'll be running games of Total Recall at Gen Con next year. That seems
Yes.
very likely.
Good timing. Good
Yeah.
timing for that. Yeah, it's kind of looking at the schedule they have out, it looks like, the MCU's, phase
Yeah,
one
a little bit.
schedule now. So it's Everyday Heroes phase one schedule. And
Hmm.
they have all these things. One of the things I noticed on there is I don't think I saw any zombie properties. And I'm thinking I'm going to make a pitch for The Walking Dead. I think that would fit in really good with the Everyday Heroes kind of
Yeah,
theme,
I could see that working too. I don't know everything that they've been discussing, but over Gen Con, Dave was saying that since the Kickstarter is funded, there's been companies actually approaching him to pitch
Hmm.
their IPs now.
Nice.
And they also announced at Gen Con that there is probably going to be a game about an assassin whose dog gets shot. um,
Yeah, yeah.
just
That's
not,
kind of
yeah.
everyday anti-hero though. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
yeah,
That's true. Also fits with the Crow too, like all of the other
yeah.
properties they have
Yes,
going
true.
on. That makes sense.
Yeah. And the crows, I thought the crows a little supernatural-ish, so I was kind of surprised, of those,
Yeah. So
so.
it's sort of like basically having your animal companion being the one that gives you some of your extra powers. And
Right.
they had an interview as well with the original creators, and they were basically given permission to sort of expand that pantheon a little
Wow.
bit.
Nice.
So they sort of broadened the universe in regards to which abilities and characters that you can be. It's not just like a single crow and only one person can be the crow.
Right.
They open that up a
Right.
little bit.
Right. Now, this is all open gaming license stuff, I'm guessing, or is it a completely different animal?
So they actually just announced at Gen Con as well that they have their own licensing program for Everyday Heroes.
Okay, cool.
So you can write content for them that they'll even help you sell by signing up to be a part of the program. So
Nice.
once they
Nice.
do their release with, well, you can sign up now, but once they do their release with their core rules and all of
Right.
these cinematic adventures, you can also do, and I think Luke Gygax already signed up to do
Yes, I saw
like a
something there.
futuristic
Yeah.
wasteland kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that was announced pretty much right at the gate. So
Right.
yeah, it works effectively like the OGL, but for the new version of the
Right.
modern system.
Nice. No, I'm excited. You must be really excited
Oh
to
yeah,
write
this is
this.
great. Like this is, I mean, they contacted me seemingly out of the blue, and it's been a
Yeah.
wild ride.
Yeah. What's the word count on something like that you got to put together?
So this is about 35,000 words for this
Okay.
adventure,
Right.
and the cinematic adventures will be first part rules to that fit the setting and support it, and then the adventure in the back to play in and just go wild.
Nice. Very good. So, what other cool projects do you have in the works, or what's the progress? Like you mentioned, kind of the mobile thing. Is there
Yeah.
any updates on that?
So with the mobile project, when I first, basically, this goes back to when I got my first freelance gig
Hmm.
with Jason at Legendary Games. I had the cornerstones of what the campaign setting was going to look like in Pathfinder First Edition. And that's what I presented to him with the idea of making it a mobile game before he gave me my first job. So it still exists in Pathfinder 1. I am trying to see how it works in Pathfinder 2. The good thing about it is that when I have the chance in my freelance work, sometimes I'll get the opportunity to get paid for something I've previously wrote at home for the campaign setting and have it
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
professionally published.
Hmm.
So that actually happened with the work that I did for Right Publishing.
Hmm.
That episode of Pathways Magazine was just the theme of mystery. So I created a series of high level spells that affected planar travel and
Hmm.
the mishaps that can occur when you basically try to teleport or plane shift within this planar hazard. And that was something I came up as a cornerstone for my own campaign, something that I was able to get published. And thanks to the OGL, you can reprint all that.
Hmm. Nice. Nice. And I was going to ask you about. I don't remember now. So I was going to ask you about the mobile thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, voice acting. Have you done any
Yeah.
more voice acting since then?
Yeah, so I actually did the voice of Ashtasar, who is a NPC from the Concordance of Elements in Pathfinder.
Mm-hmm.
I voiced him for the Pathfinder Starfinder special at Gen Con actually
Right.
last
Right.
year.
Right.
So when the NPCs are, pushing on the Pathfinders after they complete their next objective, I got to be one of the NPC voices that sort of helped you along.
Yeah, I saw the list of names in there, and so I knew you were in there.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know who you did per se.
Yeah.
I don't remember. There's so much going on, right?
Yeah, and I mean,
Doing that.
especially after Total Recall, geez, I need to update my website. But I've started gathering images for the voice acting roles I've done.
Yeah.
So whenever you see voice actors like show up at a convention and things like that, I mean, I don't personally have agency representation right now, but I am basically putting together one of those images that has all of the voice acting work that I've
Yeah.
done, and then eventually I'll have that to throw up on the website too.
Nice. Nice. Well, seems like you've been keeping busy here over the last
Yeah.
year or two. Do you have any different advice for people interested in getting involved? Like this Total Recall thing just came out of the blue.
Yes.
How does somebody get a gig like that?
Yeah. So I've been freelancing in the industry for 5 years now, and this is the first time that someone has reached out to me specifically for a job.
Mm-hmm.
In order to get to that spot, if that's what people are looking to do, I mean, eventually I feel like, that's not the only person that's going to come looking for a job after this, especially after Total Recall.
Right. Right.
Um, but I think the advice I gave the last time we chatted was just networking. And I was talking
Yes.
about my experience and how that got me my first freelance job.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say now that, and this is something I've actually heard from both people who have worked in either Pathfinder or even D&D at Wizards, is
Mm-hmm.
that if you have something that you're working on, publish it yourself or put it online somewhere. It doesn't matter if
Mm-hmm.
it's D&D Beyond, Pathfinder Infinite, blog posts about gaming content, as long as there's rules and something you've actually developed,
Mm-hmm.
having a place like your website that people can go look is exactly what people want to see. And I was speaking to uh, Jason Tondro, who's now
Mm-hmm.
working for Wizards of the Coast.
Yep.
I ran into him at Gen Con, and he was just like, just do it, because this is my first 5th edition project that I'll be working on. But if there's something else I want to do, just get it out there on D&D Beyond or Drive
Yep.
Through RPG. And depending on when a company like Wizards of the Coast would be looking for work, they'll see that you
Mm-hmm.
actually have these credits, and that makes you more of an attractive applicant.
Right. Right. No, for sure. It's in terms of the networking, I'm really interested in The Walking Dead. If
Mm-hmm.
there's somebody who needs any writing done, I've been freelancing here for 3 years, and I've got about a dozen credits. I'm happy to give it a go.
Well,
Happy to
I'll
give it a
get you in
go.
touch with Dave, and we'll see what we can do
Okay.
for sure.
All right. All right. So what's next for you, Carlos? What are the cool things
Yeah.
that you're working on that you can actually talk about, even in
Yes.
a very vague way?
So the video game board game is still going to be under development with the board game publisher.
Mm-hmm.
Some new management's coming in to find out when they can fit it into their schedule and hopefully return to these projects that were just about to happen before new ownership took over.
Right.
Then my design partner, who I worked on that project with, we are already working on our second board game project that we
Mm-hmm.
are going to try to sell hopefully within the next few months or so. While I was basically talking about Total Recall and running games for some of the digital game board folks, my design partner was basically meeting all these manufacturers to see how we could basically produce our games ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I went to PAX East in April this year and was handing out all these business cards. And sometimes networking doesn't work. Didn't hear back from any of those folks. But then I realized everyone I was talking to already had their own booth and was selling their own content.
Right.
So I
Right.
think the most logical step for me at this point in my career is start self-publishing more, because it's getting easier and easier to do so, and then
Mm-hmm.
have something that other people just want to buy.
Right. 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 Very cool. Very cool with that. Well, it's been great catching up with you,
Yeah.
and I don't have any openings right now this fall for a lecture. But if something
Mhm.
falls through, would you be available again?
Yeah. If something opens up,
Okay.
just let me know.
Yeah, it's funny. I had you in the year before. I actually had Jason Nelson come
Nice.
in and talk about Legendary. So this year I had somebody contact me out of the blue who wants to talk about kind of online marketing and a business he
Mhm.
started for that. And I thought, our students need to know that stuff too. So
Yeah.
I thought it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah. And
Well,
I've been
thanks.
hearing a lot of
Yeah,
talk with like fellow freelancers about how much, being a marketer of yourself is just so important too.
it is. And it's hard. My background's in marketing, and
Hmm.
I don't like to market myself. I try to be consistent with my branding, but in terms of constantly engaging and doing stuff, that's everything I do is kind of for fun. So
Yeah.
I'm not looking to actively do that. But as a freelancer, though, what I find is there are certain instances where I need to make people aware of my interest, at least,
Hmm.
and some of my expertise, especially now that I've got a dozen credits under my belt. So
Yeah.
it's kind of changed quite a bit over time. Well, Carlos, thanks again for joining us on the podcast. I hope you're enjoying this wonderful weather we're having in Seattle. So, and hopefully I'll see you at a convention sometime soon when I can travel. I'm not able to get out to conventions yet, but thanks again.
Yeah, thank you very much.